This is Patagonia. A primordial landscape unlike anywhere on Earth. And is bordered by the Andes Mountains to the west and south, plateau and low plains to the east. Here it feels as though time stands entirely still. As if the age when dinosaurs walked these plains was but a moment ago and a heartbeat away. Professor Rodolfo Coria is director of the Carmen Funes Museum in Neuquén Province, Argentina. He's best known for the field study and co-naming of the Argentinosaur, the world's largest land animal, and the Gigantatosaur, a carnivore even bigger than T-Rex. When it comes to really big dinosaurs, simply put, Rodolfo is the man.
My first fossil was not found in a field expedition. I found my first fossil in a shelf in a collection at a museum. And I think that was love at first sight.
Coria loves his native Argentina, and his love of the land perfectly echoes his passion for prehistory. Here, soil erosion has laid bare the story of this land's prehistoric inhabitants for all to see. This is dinosaur country.
I would have to go to the field, to go to the countryside in expeditions. Many times we have to spend several weeks in the field, away from any human contact. And in that extreme conditions, of course, there are some risks that show up.
They straddle the line between fact and fiction, these beasts. Had they never existed, we probably would have dreamt them into being. Creatures as big as our collective imaginations, as fierce as our darkest nightmares, now vanished from sight. It takes a unique camera to capture them. In this case, an IMAX rig weighing nearly 300 pounds. Film stock so rugged it could pull a truck. And a team of producers, directors, and digital whiz kids bent on doing the impossible. And they'll be doing it all in 3D. A total immersive experience. Just another in the list of daunting challenges for an IMAX team who believe they can bring these creatures to life. Undaunted by the fact that their star actors have been stone cold dead for millions of years. Join us as we venture to the wilds of Patagonia, focus in on the wonders of stereoscopic vision, and watch prehistory collide with digital culture to produce dinosaurs, giants of Patagonia. Dinosaurs, Giants of Patagonia paints a meticulous picture of a lost world, allowing us a glimpse into what the Earth looked like when Argentinosaur and Gigantosaur called it home. As you'll be with us on this journey back in time, we're going to ask you to join us in a little prehistoric trivia, a pop quiz on the Cretaceous period. But don't worry, we're not going to take it too seriously, and you shouldn't either.
Welcome, armchair paleontologists. Come on in, grab a cup of joe, and join us. It's Cretaceous, as we kick back, way back into prehistory. Sharpen your pencils and get ready. It's trivia time. Okay, the dinosaurs' reign came to an end in the late Cretaceous due to either a comet or an asteroid smashing into the Earth, forever changing the planet's climate. Now here's the question. This unhappy event occurred: A, 65 million years ago, B, 650 million years ago, or C, on a rainy night in the late 1980s. I'm sorry. The dinosaurs had millions of years, but you don't. Time's up. For those of you who chose C, on a rainy night in the late 1980s, I'm sorry, you may have confused the demise of the mighty dinosaur with the breakup of Duran Duran. It's a common mistake. Better luck next time. For those of you who chose B, 650 million years ago, I'm afraid you two are in error, although this is about the time the humble sponge came into being. And for those of you who chose A, well, bingo, you're all over it. It was indeed a scant 65 million years ago that our little blue planet got smacked. The rest is history, prehistory. And now back to our program.
Behind this ambitious project lie two remarkable individuals: paleontologist Rodolfo Coria and the film's writer and director, Marc Fafard.
Rodolfo is a scientist, so he's an inquisitive mind to start with. And being someone very curious myself, I relate to, other curious people. And I think that people having quests can share with other people having quests.
For the director, the match with Rodolfo Coria is a good one. They both have oversized passions.
It's a very unique scenario to show just a moment in life of these dinosaurs, of these Patagonian dinosaurs.
Roll camera, speed, action!
Fafard is known as a trailblazer in the realm of large format filmmaking. Dinosaurs, Giants of Patagonia is only his latest foray into IMAX. It's a medium he knows well. Fafard's groundbreaking film Adrenaline Rush explored the thrill of skydiving, taking viewers on an unforgettable journey into extreme sport. In Viking's Journey to New Worlds, Fafard brought fresh insight into a remarkable period of discovery. Viewers were given front row seats in an epic tale of exploration and adventure.
Now Fafard is involved in an even greater challenge: to film the unfilmable, to bring prehistory to life, to tame it, and to bring it in here for all of us to see. The truth of the matter is that making movies about extinct creatures is a tricky proposition. Doubly so on the big screen, and exponentially more difficult working in 3 dimensions. But that's exactly what the team creating Dinosaurs, Giants of Patagonia have set out to do. Whatever it takes. Today, this haunting landscape is temporary home for a small group of filmmakers determined to bring Patagonia's original inhabitants back to life.
We're trying to mimic what life looked like 85 million years ago. We're on this mission of working with invisible subjects, and that is exceedingly difficult.
Okay, stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Shooting a subject that's extinct is the fact that it's not there. It's not in front of us. We have to pretend that it's moving.
This remote part of Patagonia forms the perfect backdrop for their film and the ideal setting for our story. A place big and strange enough that for a moment we can allow ourselves to imagine a world where such extraordinary creatures drew breath, roamed free, and ruled all they surveyed. Shooting in isolated areas of Patagonia is only part of the challenge Fafard must face. He must also tame a range of advanced technologies in order to bring Korea's extraordinary discoveries to life. It's a complex recipe involving large format film plates, computer imaging, and digital composition.
What will make this film about dinosaurs different from every film made about dinosaurs is that this one will literally carry the audience in the Cretaceous.
This movie, in this kind of format, with this technology, is a brand new experience for me.
Large format film, especially in 3D and stereoscopic view, it's a real good way to show those dinosaurs in their real environment.
By coming to this movie, people will travel back in time. That's what, you know, the greatest part of the experience would be.
To make the journey convincing requires a thorough understanding of how we perceive the world around us, specifically how our vision works, to create a sense of depth perception that transports us into the moment. Seeing in stereo is something so commonplace we rarely think about what it involves. But making that happen in a movie theater requires an in-depth understanding of optics and how to use that to the filmmaker's advantage.
Before you go rushing out to shoot your own 3D movie, you'd best wrap your head around the concept of stereoscopic vision. Because 3D movies employ a lot of highly technical stuff just to achieve what our eyes do naturally. 3D vision occurs because both of our eyes share pretty much the same field of vision. Horses, for instance, with eyes on the sides of their heads, see almost completely different things out of each eye, resulting in very limited depth perception. Whereas we see the same visual information twice, from slightly different perspectives. Our brain, using a process known as stereopsis, then combines the two images into one, and voila! Depth perception is born! For the IMAX guys, replicating the process involves shooting with two lenses, recording two different perspectives on two rolls of film. When it comes to showing the movie, the projector uses polarized filters on the lenses to beam two slightly different images onto the same screen. Polarized glasses ensure viewers receive one image in each eye. The brain does the rest, combining the two images into one stereoscopic picture, despite the fact the screen and the images are actually flat. It's a textbook case of movie magic. And it's tricky to do, requiring exact calibration. Get it wrong by a fraction of an inch, and all you'll do is give the audience an IMAX-sized headache. Do it right, and you've got one of the most impressive and immersive technologies on offer. Throw in state-of-the-art computer graphics and a few dozen thundering reptiles, and you've got dinosaurs, giants of Patagonia. The perfect recipe for folks who like their prehistory big, bold, up close, and personal.
You would think that you could just take a camera and plant it and pretend that life is going to move in front of it. We used measuring sticks to show us how high the shoulder of these dinosaurs were, and also their depth and their breadth and their length. You know, when we get all these elements out in front of the camera, you realize that these things were enormous, and in many cases we had to back up and expand the frame because we just hadn't given enough room to have a full-scale dinosaur.
Roll camera. Action. Action. Cut. And it was our first take of Dino 3D.
The audience of large format movies likes to travel. Patagonia is such an exotic and beautiful place that they will get their share of exoticism.
Shooting in such a remote area is a unique challenge. It's not like a Hollywood backlot with hot and cold running everything. This crew is smack dab in the middle of nowhere, and everything is a challenge.
In documentary filmmaking, we're faced with many different hazards and challenges. In Argentina, it was basically the terrain, the weather, the wind. There's days when people don't even come out of their homes because the wind is too strong and it's too dangerous.
Light Patagonian breeze.
Patagonia, it's a little bit windy, but it's not chilly.
You know, we face lots of different hazards. We're working with heavy gear and we're moving it around on unbearable terrain sometimes and hauling a 300-pound camera down the sides of riverbeds, crevasses, and whatever. That's very challenging.
For Fafard and his team, all the frustrations of working on location would be worthwhile if they could get the kind of footage needed to tell the story convincingly. Fafard is looking for realism, bringing together the exact elements that would transport the viewer into Rodolfo Correa's prehistoric world.
Which is what's so irresistible about large format filmmaking. The IMAX experience is an immersive one, where filmmakers are able to have their subject matter reach out and touch you. That's what happens with IMAX 3D. It's really as if you've been transported to another world.
Alas, we are not boasting quite the same horsepower here on the small screen, and we are missing a third dimension to boot, but we do have some very cool paleontological trivia to fill the void. So, get ready for the next round.
Welcome, armchair paleontologists. Come on in as we get totally old school. It's Cretaceous. Join us as we kick back, way back into prehistory. It's trivia time. And only one question stands between you and paleontological greatness. And here it is. Dinosaurs are divided into two main groups, Saurischian and Ornithischia. According to what criteria is this division made? A, their hip structure. B, their choice of habitat. Or C, their choice of diet. Oh, I'm sorry, your time is up. For those of you who chose B, choice of habitat, congratulations are in order for choosing such a plausible criteria. Unfortunately, nobody ever thought of it before. Clever, but wrong. For those that selected C, choice of diet, well, what can we say? Brilliant choice, but also wrong. Which leaves us with A, their hip structure. No kidding, that's it. Bird hips or reptile hips, that's what it's all about in the dinosaur classification game. Now you know. Stranger still, the The bird side is Saurischia, not Ornithischia, even though you'd think it was the other way around. What can we say? Paleontology is flat out weird. And that's all we have time for. Back to our program.
In the end, of course, the dinosaurs didn't make it, ending up in textbooks and museums rather than basking in the sun and chasing down prey. But don't get too cocky. Dinosaurs dominated the Earth for 180 million years. As for whether we'll make it anywhere near that long is a very open question, but that's a story for another day. What we do know is that if Fafard and his team are successful, then for the first time we'll be able to watch life-size dinosaurs in a theater in 3 dimensions. To Fafard's way of thinking, large format filmmaking and dinosaurs are the perfect meeting between medium and subject matter. Pushing it to the 3rd dimension is just the next logical step on the road to actually slipping back into prehistory. And what of the long-dead stars of the film, the Argentinosaur and Giganotosaur? Well, in many respects, that's where our story really begins. Like all good stories, this one begins in a land far away and a long, long time ago. More specifically, about 90 million years ago, when the world was young and human life was but a Darwinistic twinkle in a far, distant future. To put it simply, the neighborhood was a little on the rough side, populated as it was by a scaly assortment of predators, most of whom viewed each other as so many potential menu items. The biggest of the lot was Argentinosaur, the largest, heaviest beast that ever lived. It was a herbivore, which must have been something of a relief to, well, pretty much everybody else.
The Argentinosaurus, the biggest dinosaur ever found so far on Earth, was discovered in January of 1989 in a tiny town called Plaza Winkle in the northwestern Patagonia in Argentina. Every backbone of Argentinosaurus is the size of a refrigerator. We were able to reconstruct a whole skeleton of this animal, and it's shown a 40 meters long, 100 feet long dinosaur, 100 tons in weight. And this dinosaur lived 90 million years ago in Patagonia.
To look up at this incredible monster, getting under it was like entering a cathedral of bones.
On the meat-eating end of the spectrum was the Giganotosaur. Weighing in at nearly 8 tons, this was one beefy lizard. Not a creature you'd want to encounter in a dark alley, or on a sunny day for that matter. Rodolfo Coria and his colleagues are discovering more about these marvelous creatures every day. But they are still beings filled with mystery. It has always been this way.
Back in 1842, a gentleman by the name of Sir Richard Owen invented the term dinosaur, which roughly translates to terrible lizard. It's a great name. It'd be a pretty good name for a rock band. But it brought with it a number of associations that may be flat out wrong. You see, once you call these things lizards, you start thinking of them as lizards. And that's the mother of all assumptions. For instance, you begin to think of them as cold-blooded, because they're lizards, right? Actually, Owen thought they were warm-blooded. But by the first half of the 20th century, scientists determined that Owen was wrong, and that dinosaurs were actually cold-blooded. And that was the case for a while, until, well, they changed their minds. And now the thinking is more in line with Sir Owen, with general agreement that these creatures were, in many respects, warm-blooded. The truth is that the terms cold-blooded and warm-blooded are falling out of favor somewhat, as we discover that body temperature can be maintained in a number of different ways. The current thinking is that large dinosaurs may have been gigantotherms, maintaining their body heat by virtue of huge body mass. So now you know. But just to be safe, we'll be checking back with the experts in another 50 years to see if they've changed their minds again.
Warm-blooded or cold-blooded, the very thought of a hungry gigantosauр is enough to give you the chills. 45 feet of pure carnivore. Interestingly enough, the one you're looking at here is a pretty recent example of the species, having been born not from an egg, but in a digital design studio in Quebec City. Although many of the dinosaurs for the film were created in a computer, the lead dinosaurs were made the old-fashioned way. No, not by a couple of amorous reptiles after a bottle of wine, but by sculptors working with traditional tools. The work is painstaking, and the attention to detail is exact. These are the stars of the film, and no detail is too small. Rodolfo Coria works closely with the artist to ensure the creatures are accurate reflections of his conception of what these beasts looked like. The dinosaurs need to be transported very carefully to Canada's capital city of Ottawa, where they will be scanned using advanced laser scanners to produce digital information that can be imported into the team's computers, and thereby beginning their journey back to their home in Patagonia. In nature, the Argentinosaur reached lengths of up to 120 feet and weighed in at upwards of 100 tons. Even in the digital realm, these creatures are massive. Computer-generated images are created out of tiny polygons, which together create the shape and surfaces of the creatures on screen. These are compositions of unsurpassed realism. Multi-gigabyte images that, in computer terms, make the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park look, well, prehistoric by comparison. And these are not just pretty pictures. They represent the coming together of computer modeling, the latest scientific research, and advanced mathematics.
For every dinosaur you see in this film, we had to create the skeleton, the envelope, which is the skin, and also the muscles. What's fantastic about the skeleton is that we have complete control over it. We created a character setup, which is transforming the skeleton into like a digital puppet. And with the controllers, we can affect in different areas in ways like, for instance, rotation or translation, the dinosaur. To figure out how dinosaurs would move, we look at other animals in nature to see how they would react, how the weight shift, and all the subtleties of the motion. So our dinosaurs have parts of elephants, parts of reptile, birds, all combined together.
Striding among the greats of 19th century paleontology was Othniel Charles Marsh, a veritable giant in the field, whose work included some early studies on the Stegosaurus, specifically on its brains. And the plural is applicable here, because there was some thought that the Stegosaurus had two, count them, two brains. One comparatively small thing in its head, the other nearly 20 times bigger, located, well, the other brain was thought to be in its hindmost region, around its tail. The jury's still out as to what this second larger part of the nervous system was all about. Some believe it provided a form of glucose. Whatever it was, it turns out not to be unique to the Stegosaurus. It's an anatomical feature that occurs in many reptiles. The creature's actual brain was only about 3 ounces, which isn't a lot of gray matter to power 4.5 tons of Stegosaurus. So any help in the brain department would have been appreciated. Although the relationship between the two organs remains a bit of a mystery. We're pretty sure now it wasn't actually a second brain. But for a long time, paleontologists weren't sure. They were, you might say, of two minds about the whole thing.
Now, you have to admit that's pretty strange, a creature with a brain in its butt. You know what they say, 2 heads are better than 1, regardless of where it's located. Now, before we move on, let's take another moment for a quick round of trivia.
Welcome, armchair paleontologists. Come on in. Mi casa, su casa. It's Cretaceous. Join us as we kick back, way back into prehistory. Sharpen your pencils and get ready. It's trivia time. And our topic today is stuff that's older than dinosaurs. Sure, they're old, but dinosaurs weren't the first living creatures to take up residence here on planet Earth. In fact, a number of species still with us predate the dinosaur, including all of the following except one. Can you spot the imposter? A, jellyfish. B, dragonflies. And C, cocker spaniels. I'm afraid your time's up. For those of you who chose A, jellyfish, we're sorry to inform you that the jellyfish was a well-established resident hereabouts long before the dinosaur. So you would be, how can we put this kindly, totally wrong. For those of you who chose B, dragonflies, you joined the losers over with the jellyfish people. Our friends the dragonfly have been around for nearly 400 million years, a veritable arrival on the Mayflower in prehistory terms. And for those clever folk who chose C, cocker spaniels, well, we're speechless. You're right. Our fluffy friend the spaniel is a relative newcomer, belonging to the genus Canis familiaris, domesticated from wolves a scant 15,000 years ago. Well, that's all we have time for. Back to our program.
Dinosaurs, giants of Patagonia, is about more than the huge reptiles that made the Triassic such a bizarre and awe-inspiring place. Filmmakers also investigated other extraordinary beasts, including some of a more aquatic bent, like my personal favorite, Leopleurodon, a sea creature that makes Australia's white sharks look like guppies. A silent killing machine, they believe, may have reached lengths in excess of 70 feet. Its trademark dental work was comprised of a lethal hybrid of teeth and tusks. The Leopleurodon sampled water through its nostrils, smelling in stereo, as it were, making it an extremely able hunter. As for predators, the Leopleurodon had none. I mean, really, what the heck is going to eat that thing? If 3D computer wizardry is complex with land creatures, it's doubly so with the things that lived underwater. Not only is there the challenge of creating the surrounding structures and the beast itself, but even the water, the currents, and the surrounding fish and plankton have to be built and animated in order to produce an underwater sequence so real
Well, so real, we're almost tempted to hold our breath. It turns terrifying, it turns surprising. The enduring appeal of dinosaurs lies in their otherness. Their utter strangeness to us and the world we inhabit has fascinated paleontologists for more than 100 years.
Of course, it was so long ago, and everything was so different from the way that it is today that nearly anything seems possible. Because what we're talking about here is an enormous sweep of time, something paleontologists often refer to as deep time.
The thing that's amazing about dinosaurs is that they've been around for 180 million years. They were very successful. They've been dominating the planet for much longer than we did. And that's where we get into a notion that we call deep time. How do you understand time at this scale? I think we're fascinated by dinosaurs because they're part of us. Not because we've lived among them, but because they incarnate the sum of our fears.
To understand dinosaurs, you've got to have a sense of time on a scale that's rather difficult to fathom. We tend to think in terms of weeks and years. But when you start measuring the age of our planet, the scale becomes immense. In Canada's Northwest Territories, they've discovered rocks that date from 3,500 million years ago or 3.5 billion years ago, whichever number you find easier to comprehend.
The Earth itself is estimated to be over 4.5 billion years old. Imagine this screen, all 52 by 72 feet of it, as representing the total age of the Earth. Now, for some perspective, let's compare that with the average human lifespan. There. That's speck. That's the blink of an eye that the average human life amounts to. A pinprick in deep time. Fafard's challenge as a director is to try and take the audience by the hand and make that great traverse across deep time. Dinosaurs roamed the Earth for 180 million years. We've been here, in our latest incarnation, for about 1/60th that time. And over the last 150 years or so, we've turned our attention towards the planet's earlier inhabitants. And to be honest, it's been something of a mixed success, which brings to mind the cautionary tale of the Archaeoraptor.
In 1999, a remarkable discovery emerged when a potential missing link between dinosaurs and birds was unveiled. The extraordinary new specimen was dubbed Archaeoraptor. There was considerable excitement at the news. Even the prestigious publication National Geographic covered it. Then some killjoy noticed that the fossil's tail had been glued on and came from a different creature entirely. And so the short, unhappy story of the Archaeoraptor came to an abrupt halt. But questions about birds and dinosaurs persisted and are the source of much confusion and some acrimony amongst paleontologists. Dinosaurs' skeletons, their footprints, so much about them are reminiscent of birds that we can't help but wonder what links exist between them. Recent fossil discoveries in China suggest some dinosaurs, for at least a portion of their lives, had feathers. For many of us, this requires a bit of imagination, envisioning our old friend Velociraptor, for instance, sporting feathers like some giant carnivorous chicken. Still, the existence of feathers doesn't necessarily mean they could fly, much less that they were birds. Feathers make excellent insulation, so it was probably just that, a little something extra to keep a cold dinosaur warm on a chilly Cretaceous evening. And the truth is, if you ask your local paleontologist, she'll likely tell you that, technically speaking, what we think of as birds are actually modern-day dinosaurs. Imagine that, real live dinosaurs hanging out in the backyard.
Forgive me if I find that just a little bit disconcerting. Dinosaurs in the backyard kind of makes you rethink the karma in the neighborhood, doesn't it? The strange creatures, indeed. There's still so much more for us to learn about them. The feathers, the bizarre neurological wirings of the Stegosaurus, and probably even weirder things yet to be discovered. But for Fafard and his team, this quest is drawing to a close, and what a remarkable journey it's been.
An undertaking equal parts art and science, making their contribution to the ongoing debate about what these creatures really were, how they behaved. It's a realm in constant evolution, shifting with each new breakthrough, a world that dinosaurs, giants of Patagonia, conjures up vividly, providing us a glimpse into what the Earth looked like when the Argentinosaur and the Giganotosaur called it home. It will always tantalize us, this world of the lizard kings. So much like our own, yet alien to us. Its hold on our imaginations is complete. We shall forever be in its thrall, trying to reach out and touch a world forever gone from sight. It lives on in us, a primordial memory of a time long before our own. Distant yet familiar, where terrible creatures ruled.
Like most professions, paleontology has its own specialized jargon, a multisyllabic toolbox that enables paleontologists to talk to one another about the weird and wonderful work they do. Because they spend a lot of time trying to classify the various beasts they study, they use something called phylogenetics. Now, phylogenetics is basically the study of who's related to whom and who came first. It breaks everybody up into groups and then uses something called a cladogram to map out their relationship to one another. A cladogram is a fancy name for a family tree, showing who evolved into whom. All of this, both phylogenetics and the cladogram, were the invention of a German biologist named Willy Hennig. In fact, it could be said that this entire system of classification used today evolved directly from him. And for what it's worth, Willy Hennig was the son of one Marie Grob, a German factory worker. Marie, in turn, was a modern Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens, as some of you are no doubt aware, appear in the fossil records in Africa about 135,000 years ago, and are, in turn, the evolutionary descendants of, well, you get the picture. Or in this case, you get the cladogram.